Howdy y'all, welcome to the Mr. Maple Show. Today we've got a 10 at 10 for you. I'm Matt.
And I'm Tim. And we got a cool lineup of cool plants. If you like cool plants, give us a like, smash that like button, comment in the comment section. And remember, these plants go online today at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So you can shop, check out, and get some of these cool plants we're talking about.
Guys, we are dropping new plants every single week on Mr. Maple. These are just 10 of the 20 new listings that will be going live at 10 a.m. So make sure to sign up for our weekly email to get the full listing of 20. We love to drop 10 of these on the table for you and discuss them. So definitely be checking that email out. It's a great way to find out ahead of everybody else what's going to be on the website.
Guys, Memorial Day coming up. This Memorial Day, on that Monday, we've got an open house at Mr. Maple. Get your hotel reservations now. If you want to be here early on Monday because you can shop all of our cool plants here at Mr. Maple.
There's going to be a ton of surprises, a ton of cool plants. We'll have some interesting garden tours lined up for you. There's going to be a lot happening that weekend. Definitely get here that Monday of Memorial Day, though. It's going to be one of the most fun times you'll ever have at Mr. Maple.
Guys, 10 at 10. That's one of our favorite times of the week. We get to put some of the cool plants that we've been growing here at our greenhouses and get them in your garden. And it's always a fun time. We've tried to line up a really cool lineup this week and some plants that have never been listed before on Mr. Maple.
Yeah, shout out to our international community as well. We can't ship to you guys, but we appreciate you participating in these videos. There's a lot of valued members of our international community who watch these videos every single week. And guys, it means the world to us that you take your time to participate. Definitely check out that live chat if you're watching it during the premiere. You have to be logged in to YouTube to participate in the live chat, but it's a madhouse down there. Those guys are awesome. There's always something going on. Discussions about plants, discussions about what they're after. I know several people that give away plants to people in that live chat, so it's getting to be a really fun community. Definitely check that out. And guys, we've got a good one for you here today. We'll get right into it. We've got some great plants. I'll start out down here with Acer palmatum rainbow.
That's a good way to start out. I mean, this is a pink on red variegated type. And if you see any branches that come out with solid red, we do recommend pruning those out. Your Japanese maple grows twice a year. Mm-hmm. Once in the spring and once during the summer. And so if you prune out the solid red branching during those times of the year, this plant can really be a showstopper out in the landscape.
Yeah, it is one I do recommend pruning for color rather than shape, but it's an amazing tree. And from Mr. Maple, you're gonna get a distinctly variegated plant. Something we care about. We like getting things correct. We like having the right nomenclature. And so when you get a Japanese maple from Mr. Maple, you can count on it being distinctly variegated if it's a variegated plant. So rainbow's no exception there. These look awesome right now. There's a lot of swirling going on, that bright pink. These are just starting to leaf out when we're shooting this. They're gonna fill out a ton more, but one of the most striking pink on red variegated plants you'll ever see.
A selection by Talon Buchholz. This is a plant that was sort of one of those plants that everybody was just after.
Right.
And Matt and I were like, man, we gotta get ourselves a rainbow. We gotta get ourselves a rainbow. And we try to make this tree available as much as we can here on Mr. Maple. The plant is a really good upright red as well, but give it some protection from the hot afternoon sun because that pink can sometimes be leaves that are solid pink. And if you do that, some of that solid pink can get variegated if you put it in too much sun. So give this tree some protection from the hot afternoon sun, but a really unique tree that's gonna sell out fast today.
Go back and check our podcast on the top 50. There's 2 podcasts, cultivars by Talon Buchholz, to see where rainbow falls on our list of top 50.
Guys, next up, we've got another Talon Buchholz introduction. Acer palmatum Miss Maple.
Now my wife goes by Mrs. Maple, so maybe that one works for her as well. This could be one of my daughters, I miss. But an awesome tree, really cool one. This is one of those new ghosts. So check out our series on the new ghosts by Talon Buchholz. These are basically trees that retain that reticulated style variegation, but aren't named in the ghost series. And Miss Maple, one of the more popular ones of those newer ghosts. I like this one for its kind of like later spring color. You can almost get some real cool greens with some pinks over top of that. And I think it's one of the more exceptional color patterns for a soft light green.
I agree. The veining is extremely prominent, and the metallic green veining on this almost gives it a glossy, shiny appearance to the leaf. And we did a full video on this one as well in Matt's garden. We've got a specimen of Miss Maple out there.
I've got a huge one right as you go into my house.
And this tree typically gives a pretty good fall color too,
right,
of some really nice bold reds. But this is a new ghost selection you won't want to miss out on.
Guys, this one's fun. You can get some different shades in the spring depending on your light exposure. The more sun you can give this one early, it kind of gets a little crazier. I've had it be more amber ghost. I've had it be more pink. I've had it have some bronzing in it. You can get a whole lot going on. I like when it kind of slows down though and you get those distinctly green shades with pink new growth. That's probably my favorite status of it, but it is a very uniquely colored, interesting reticulated veining, and it's one that brings high drama to the garden. I've got one as soon as you get into my driveway. I'm planting a ton of trees in this new garden, but I mean, right as you get up to my steps from the driveway, it's one of the most prominent trees in the garden, and people love it. It's one that gets a big reaction. All right, for you Makawa people out there, we've got a new Makawa family variant. I don't even think we covered this in our Makawa family series.
Not yet.
All right, we've got Acer palmatum Bella.
Guys, this is a very unique style. Think of it as that Teroyama Angel the Prince, more upright.
I'd probably say closest to Angel the Prince.
Yeah, but the spring color is almost a coral kind of color with some bronzing when it first leaves out. So this is very unique on its upright habit, twisting foliage.
Super interesting, really nice compact tree, and I think it's going to add a lot to that Makawa family, not only for color but texture. You can get some oranges to reds in the fall on this. I've had some really intense oranges on it early. Really showy plant though. This is going to work equally as well in the container garden or in the landscape. And so far it's been equally as sun tolerant as Makawa Yatsubusa. So it's been an excellent one for high heat exposures up to zone 8.
Yeah, it definitely has a leaf shape very similar to Makawa Yatsubusa. The leaf twists a little bit more, and that tighter compact habit is going to be something you're going to really enjoy.
Maybe a little more Shiranami times Makawa.
Getting close.
All right, really fun plant though, one you're definitely going to want in your garden. And don't sleep on these, they will sell out pretty quickly. And that's Acer palmatum Bella.
Guys, next up, we've got one from the early writings in Japan. One of the first Japanese maples in Japanese literature, Acer palmatum Azuma murasaki.
Guys, this one actually leaves out a little greenish. So that's one that can confuse people because it gets to a very nice red after that. Very old cultivar that's been around, like Tim was saying, since the 1800s. It may even be on one of those early 1700s. I don't think it's on the very first list, but it's early.
Now, when this finishes leafing out, these green-red leaves turn to almost a brick red, and then you've got the green stemming. That contrast is pretty awesome. The summer new flesh during the summer, it can be a cherry red.
Right. So this is a classic tree. I don't know that somebody would select this for these traits now, but it's one you need in your garden. Probably people would look at something too flashy and overlook a classic like this these days for selection, but it's awesome. It's one of those ones that may not be in the trade as much anymore, but it's got everything you want as a plant collector for diversity, for color contrast, for looking at new plants. It's got everything you would need to have a hit new plant, but I don't know that people would think about it that way, that brick color.
We're talking 10 feet in 10 years, and the fall color in autumn is a bold orange infused with red.
It's unique, it's interesting. I like the new growth. It's kind of a lime green as well, which contrasts really well, especially on young plants with that kind of bright brick red color. It's a showstopper of a plant, and I'm a fan of the classics. I'm a history major. I love when something's been around a while. Azuma murasaki is one you can add to your collection. I don't think you see it many places anymore either. It's kind of lost in the trade a little bit, but we try to bring those things back here at Mr. Maple.
If you're collecting those old classic Japanese maples, this is one you definitely want. Or if you just want a pretty tree in your landscape or garden,
Works
awesome
either
plant
way.
as well.
You don't have to be a history buff to want that one, but it helps. Guys, we got another classic back on the table. We've got Acer Shirasawanum Aureum.
The golden full moon maple. Yes, it's yellow.
All right, do a yellow dance.
Yellow dance.
I try to stop him, honestly. I'm just going to do it anyway. We have a full breakdown on this one. Go check out our video where we look at a huge specimen of this at the St. John's in the Wilderness. And amazing plant. Acer Shirasawanum Aureum's been around a long time as well. I saw the original one there at Esveld Plantinium in Holland. Rumor has it that Seabold himself sailed up there and threw the original tree onto the bank there at Esveld to one of Core's great-grandparents. And that's where all the Aureums in production come from, is that original tree there at the landscape. And a really cool thing to see a tree that's a piece of history like that. And you can actually grow Acer Shirasawanum Aureum in a ton of different locations. I do recommend some late day shade for its best color. This is one Tim typically recommends siting in a container and then kind of moving it around to find the best spot for it here in the south. But you do want to give it some protection from the hot afternoon sun for its best yellow. It's one of my favorite full moon leaves though, because you get that large, round, full moon leaf.
Extremely popular because of its rounded leaf like Matt talked about, and the bright yellow color is simply amazing. Now, like Matt talked about, siding it is really critical. You don't want to put this in hot afternoon sun in the south. Filtered light's great, morning sun with some afternoon shades great, but like Matt said, that container, moving it around until it finds its happy spot, then plant it in the ground and let this plant just do its thing, because this plant just gives you some really bright yellows with that full moon leaf. I'm talking that perfectly rounded leaf. It's exceptional.
Really nice oranges to even orange reds in the fall. I like it as a container plant. I have a big one in a high oak garden that's excellent. I actually have it sited near an ukigumo, so you get that crazy coloration for it. But a really fun one. Make sure to give it good drainage in the container, and one you can bring back up into a heavy shade garden and still have a lot of yellow going on as well.
Now this is a slow grower, so don't think this is going to be a very vigorous tree. That means it's great for containers just in general if you want to grow in a container. But if you put this in the ground, we're talking 6 to 8 foot in 10 years. We're talking about a half a foot of growth a year on this plant. And this plant is just a rock star, and it's one that tends to sell out fast. It's a very popular tree we do here on Mr. Maple. Guys, next up, we've got Acer palmatum, Momoiro koyosan.
Yeah, guys, this one is an introduction by our good friend, and he's often been a helpful mentor to our nursery as well, Dick Vandermaat of Holland. He's named a ton of great plants, and no exception here with Momoiro koyosan. It is an awesome tree with a lot of spring interest. This one leaves out even a more intense peachy pink. You can get some great shades of just bright red to pink on this, and really fun plant.
A lot of these corallinum types, give them a little bit of sunlight. In more shaded situations, it can be a little more muted, and allow them to leaf out slowly. That's always going to get you the very best colors on these spring interest Japanese maples.
This would make an excellent bonsai now that you mention it in that spring interest style of like corallinum. Momoiro koyosan is one of the most highly sought after for its high intense colors. It really brings the high drama in early spring. Now this is a great tree. It's going to put on typically around a foot of growth a year.
Amazing plant. Again, give it some protection from the hot afternoon sun to hold that spring interest as long as you can throughout the season. It's one that can handle a more heat situation, but it will go through its spring display much quicker in a complete full sun situation than it will with the morning sun afternoon shade.
Now this makes me think of a fun pairing with another Dick Vandermaat introduction. So if you love Mila, man, this would really show out with a Mila. This would be a fun one. I'm about to go plant one of these near my Mila stock plant. Another Dick Vandermaat introduction that's high interest. He comes up with some really fun spring interest trees, and Momoiro koyosan is no exception. Awesome plant to be growing. All right, another classic. I guess I did Arium. I'll go ahead and do another classic, Acer palmatum, Shishigashira. Now guys, this is the same tree you've probably seen sold at local garden centers called Lionhead. Lion's Head is the exact same plant. It's actually a specific line in Japanese literature, the Shishigashira. Awesome tree to be growing. You know this one if you're watching our channel. Always highly sought after for bonsai or in the landscape. Really fun plant and one of my favorite plants for consistent fall color.
I also think this is an extremely hardy plant. I mean, this is a plant that we've seen people grow in Columbia, South Carolina, and didn't take care of it at all.
Up against a brick house.
Up against a brick house. Did it well in that extreme high heat. We're talking a zone 8A, 8B against brick in one of the hottest places around our local area within a 2-hour drive. And it performed exceptionally without much care. You just plant it where it's got good drainage, and this plant thrives. I mean, the texture, the green foliage, the texture of that curling gives this a tufted appearance that makes it look like a lion's mane when this goes to the orange in the fall.
Really fun plant, guys. It's actually one with exceptionally small seeds, so you may think you've never seen seed on your Shishigashira, but you may not know what to look for. They're like the size of a pinhead, like they're tiny. And we had a good friend, Jim Baggett, who had 50 years of Shishigashira seedlings in bonsai. It was amazing. You can find some just like with Makawa that come back fairly true to form. It's a fun plant for bonsai enthusiasts or in the landscape. It actually is a good plant to stump people with because it doesn't necessarily look like a Japanese maple to a lot of folks, but it is a durable, high intensity plant that is a classic for a good reason.
I remember visiting Jim Baggett, and the thing that made me weak at the knees and about to fall over and faint was he mentioned that he'd found seedlings off of Shishigashira that he was going to use for bonsai that were variegated. And I was like, oh my goodness, they were variegated. He said the darn things grew too fast, meaning it was a vigorous variegated Shishigashira. He said, so I threw them out. And I was like, oh my goodness, be still my heart. But Shishigashira, a classic Japanese maple that is going to be amazing out there in the landscape and garden. And it's from that 1700s list. I mean, it's a classic you need in your garden. So next up, we've got another great tree, a classic, the OG pine bark, Acer palmatum, Nishiki gawa.
Now these are always popular for that pine bark interest. They get that fissured bark to them, but I think it's an underrated tree for the other traits. You get, some really nice spring interest. It's got kind of a flushed border around it a lot of times, has an elongated leaf, and I would say some of the best fall color I've ever seen on a green upright I saw on Nishiki gawa. I've had this be like reds, almost purpley reds, and just hit some insane color patterns.
Now, Nishiki, while most people think of that meaning variegated, when they see many other different types of Japanese maples with the term Nishiki in there, it actually kind of translates as brocade. And that sort of describes the bark with gawa. Gawa means bark. So it has a brocading bark. And that's where it gets its name of Nishiki gawa. I mean, this plant is a fantastic plant in its own respect because you can have a plant out in the landscape that looks like it's a 100-year-old plant, but it may only be 10 years old because that pine bark adds a lot of aged characteristics to this tree. So it'll look like a really old tree in the landscape and garden. Great for fairy gardens because of that. Great for containers. And like Matt mentioned, this tree is one of the most popular trees for bonsai. All these trees are grafted that we're doing, and these are grafted here right around 3 inches on these Nishiki gawa we're offering today. But this plant is pretty awesome.
Yeah, go back and watch our video at Maple Walk. We walk up to a gorgeous specimen of this, and that tree's so old it even has, the fissured bark on almost the new growth. It's filled out to that point. That bark layering is so intense. It's awesome. It kind of gives you a bonsai in the ground even if you plant it, so you get that kind of ancient appearance to a tree even in the landscape.
Yeah, awesome, awesome plant. From one Nishiki to another.
Yeah, next up we've got Acer palmatum Sagara Nishiki. Now this is a fun one for its yellow border. This one gets that checkered flaking border. Sometimes if you give it some heavy shade, it can even get deeper into the leaf, but it kind of just has that checkerboard appearance around that large green foliage.
Yeah, this plant when it's young and vigorous, you get a little less of that yellow on it. And you see some yellow around the edges right now. And as this plant slows down the landscape, makes more of a mature plant, the thick yellow border on this can just be outstanding. And there's not really anything else like this. I mean, this style of sand-dusting variegation on the border with yellow on a green makes this 6 to 8 foot upright a very unique plant. Plant it somewhere near a walkway. Plant it somewhere with some shade like Matt talked about, and you're gonna have a plant that is outstanding and is starkly different from everything else out there.
Really good plant. Tends to grow in more of a small conical shape to it. Really nice, dense habit to it, especially as it fills out. Also a great fall color. You can get some really bold reds, and you can actually see that flaking still in there sometimes with the fall color. Really unique tree for that characteristic. It's also a fun one to be grown in a big patio planter because you can bring a lot of that high interest back up to the patio. Well, last but not least, we've got a giant over here. You sure we can get these in our 1 gallon boxes?
We'll
All right,
see.
we've got Acer japonicum Green Cascade.
Guys, this is some of our large 1 gallons of Green Cascade. Now, many of y'all may have heard of J.D. Vertrees, and J.D. Vertrees wrote the book on Japanese maples. The first and second and third and fourth editions all have writings from J.D. Vertrees. And when he got really popular and made Japanese maples popular in America, he had other people propagating for him. And one of the gentlemen was Art Wright. And Art Wright went through a batch of Acer japonicum seedlings and found Acer japonicum Green Cascade.
Guys, I like to think of this one as the lace leaf Maikujaku. You're gonna get all those fall colors that you love with the dancing peacock, but in a more weeping, small format. Now these tend to be low and spreading, so they make great container plants. It is a gorgeous one to have in the garden. They do tend to get a little bit wider than they are tall. Typically they're like 5 to 6 feet tall by about 6 to 7 foot wide. My favorite thing about this tree is the fall color. It is awesome in every season. You do get that japonicum leaf that's heavily divided, more lace leaf style. You get the japonicum tassel flowers, but japonicums in the fall, they're hard to beat. And this one adds yellows, oranges, and reds all at the same time. So you can really put on a high intensity display in that fall months. And Green Cascade, what a unique shape. Another excellent patio planter. You can put this one in a shadier spot in a patio planter and really bring some of that high intensity fall color back up onto the porch. It gives you a tropical feel to it, but with everything you love about a Japanese maple.
I just love the fact it's a lace leaf japonicum.
Yeah.
I mean, everything's bigger and better on the japonicums. The flowers, the thicker foliage, the fall color's outstanding. And I mean, the fact that it's a lace leaf japonicum with a more widespreading habit makes this tree a standout in the garden.
Now guys, these are high grafts. These are grafted about this high up. It's going to give you a great standard for this to just spread out and get low on. I'm a huge fan of these. They're huge. Don't wait on these. We'll have to be potting these up at some point. They'll be outgrowing our 1 gallon sizes pretty quickly. I hope you've enjoyed this 10 at 10. These are just 10 of the 20 trees we'll be listing today on MrMaple.com. Sign up for that email to get that full listing. We'll be dropping some surprises for sure with these. So definitely be checking out at 10 a.m. There'll be some other things that aren't even on the table that you're going to want to see.
Now guys, remember, if something sells out, it sells out fast sometimes. Make sure you check out really quickly. And they're not held for you when you just add them to your cart. Check out fast. There's going to be so many cool plants that are getting listed with these plants as well. And we've got some cool conifers today that we didn't even talk about.
Yeah, there's a ton of cool plants coming back to MrMaple.com today. So you're definitely going to want to be part of that. And we really appreciate you tuning in.
Take care.
God bless.
And have an awesome day.